Hello everybody, it's Bruce and I'm here to show you a very basic program. And on the screen you can see I've created this problem statement which says write a program that asks a person to enter three numbers one at a time and then display the sum of the three numbers. Okay, so again it's going to ask the user, the person, to enter a number and then enter another number and then enter another number and then display right to the screen to the person that entered the numbers the sum of those three numbers. All right, so as you learned in our first class, right, you want to start by creating an IPO, right, which identifies the inputs, processes that you need to perform, and the outputs you need to display to the person that's interacting with your program. So let's start with the inputs, right? So the inputs are going to be three numbers, right? That's what the problem asked us to input, to enter, right? So the processes that we need to perform, right, are to add up, right? Add up the three numbers, right? And then we need to display, right, the outputs, right? And that is the sum of the three numbers, right? So a very basic program, right? And I think you can all relate to this, right? I mean, it seems like, really, Bruce? But yeah, really, all right? So check this out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this stuff right here, and I'm gonna copy it. Again, this is just a text file, and I'm gonna fire up VS Code. Look at that, there it is. And I'm gonna create, first of all, I'm gonna click on this file explorer here, and I'm gonna open up a folder, and I'm gonna create on my desktop, I'm just gonna call this demo, okay? And I'm gonna open it up. And now I have a folder available to me in the file navigator here, right? So I'm going to click on this little icon here, and I'm going to say, let's just call this add, let's see, three numbers, .py. .py. It's really important to enter in .py and not another extension because Python requires the file extension to be .py. All right. So there we go. Okay, I'm going to close the welcome tab. Okay, and I'm going to close this tab right here because I don't need it. And I'm going to click on this because I don't need to see this. I'm going to focus on my code. The next thing I want to do is kind of something that I haven't taught you yet, but I'm going to show you right now. And that's, remember I copied this text right here. And in the first class, I showed you how you can create a comment that the Python language won't run. It's for humans, right? This stuff right here. Well, when you have a lot of lines, right, of comment, it's going to be a pain in the neck to write all these lines prefixed with this kind of, with these hash signs, right? So what you can do is you can enter three single quotes, 1, 2, 3, and then three single quotes, right? And then just paste in, right, that text, and now that's called a block comment. All of this stuff right here is just for me, Bruce, the human, okay? So I have the problem in front of me, all right? So here's what I like to do. Check this out, ready? I'm gonna copy these three lines right here, which are the inputs, processes, and outputs. And I'm going to paste them in right there. And again, I need to make these comments, okay? Because I'm gonna show you something that's gonna help you out, okay? And what we want to do now is we want to enter code after each of these items, right? So after the inputs three numbers, this is where we need to write code to ask the user, right, the person, three times for a number. We're going to need to store each one of those numbers in a variable, and I'll explain that a little bit more shortly. And then we're going to need to add those numbers up. But let's start right now by saying, hey, let's create a variable called number1, because we're telling the computer that when Bruce enters in this first number, I want you to store it in the computer's program's memory, and I want you to call it number1. All right? So check this out. So when we input a number into a Python program, the way that the textbook does it is we do something like this. We say eval input. Now watch the way I did that. Let me just do that again, okay? Check this out. Eval. Now I'm going to enter a parenthesis, and notice how it closes it for me. And then inside of that, I'm going to say input, okay? Now both of these are built into the Python language. They're ways of doing certain things, and the input is kind of obvious, right? Input takes inside of it a string of characters, and this is the text that we're going to display to the user. So enter the first number, and I'm going to put a space there. And what this does is normally when you have input, it will take in what we call a string. So if I enter the number 3, it's going to make it like what we call a string. But we want a number and not a string. And this will make more sense. Trust me on this one. So we put this word eval around it. And I'll show you in subsequent programs other ways to convert what the user enters from one thing to another, all right? So check this out. If I run this right now, if I save it, because it's not saved, I'll save it, and then I'll right-click, I'll say Run Python File in Terminal. It says enter a number, and I'll enter a number 42, right? And that's it. And that's all we've asked our program to do. Now, the program started up here. It ran through and said, Bruce just put some comments there. I don't need to do anything with those. But now it's saying, hey, prompt Bruce using this input, have him enter in a number, convert it from a string to a number, and store it in this thing called number1, okay? So I don't know about you, but I don't like typing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this line by holding down my left mouse button, right, and selecting that. I'm going to right-click copy, or you can use, Control-C or Command-C, right, on your keyboards. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to change the text to second number. And we're going to store the second number in a variable called number2. And then, believe it or not, we're going to repeat that. And we're going to call this variable 3. And this is third number. Okay. So again, I saved it. I'll right-click, Run Python File in Terminal, right? And I'll enter the number 12, 11, 10. And that's it. That's all our program does right now, right? It prompted Bruce to enter in 3 numbers, store whatever Bruce typed in these variables, number 1, number 2, and number 3, right? And that's our inputs. We did it. Yay! All right? I can see you all smiling right now, all right? Either that or you're like, this guy's crazy. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to maximize my window here. So there you go. All right. So look at that. Processes. Add up the 3 numbers. So we need to create something in the computer's memory using a variable where we're going to store the value of the sum of number 1, number 2, and number 3. So check this out. Ready? I'm going to create a variable called the sum. The sum. And notice how I capitalized the second word? That's called camel case. And you'll be seeing me doing that a lot. If I just do like the sum like that, it's hard to read or hard to say. But when I capitalize, right, the sum like this, it's easier to read. And again, this is called camel case because the S in the middle, right, is like the hump of a camel, okay? So check this out. The sum, right, if I said we need to add up number 1 plus number 2, right, plus number 3, number 3, right? This is an expression as is discussed in chapter 2 of the textbook. And this whole thing here is a program statement. And this is a variable that's going to hold the result of the expression, right? So let's say Bruce enters 1, 1, and 1. So if I say 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, the variable, the sum, is going to hold the number 3, right? So that's the only process that we define, which is to add up the 3 numbers. An assignment, right, goes from right to left. So we do what's on the right and we assign it to this variable on the left, okay? The last part of our program is to output or to display the sum of the numbers. So if I use the built-in Python function print, let me do that again, ready? P-R-I-N-T, right? And then if I hit enter, it will do that for me. Did you see that? Watch this. P-R-I-N-T. Notice the type ahead. And again, I'll just hit enter and it does that for me because it's built into the language. It knows the word print, all right? So now I'm going to say, if I just do this, if I just say the sum, check this out, wait for it. I'm going to save this. Save it. And now I'm going to run it. Ready? Right click. Run Python file in terminal, and it says enter the first number, 1, enter the second number, 1, and the third number, 1, and it displays the number 3. Yay, it works. And when you write programs, you need to know what your program is doing, because what happens if I entered 1, 1, and 1 in and I got like 50, right? So you have to know the expected results of your code, right? Now, 3 is boring, right? Because that's not a nice way to display the results to the user, right? So what we can do is we can do this. We can put a string and a comma right there because I'll explain this in a second, but we're going to say the sum of the 3 numbers you entered is, right? And comma, and then the variable name that you want to display, which is the sum, because that's holding, right? 3, right? So I'll save that. Notice the auto pep stuff kicked in. It separated that a little bit. And I'll run it again. Here we go. 1, 1, 1, 1. And the sum of the 3 numbers you entered is 3. How about that? Okay. Now, some of you are going to ask, what about, displaying the 3 numbers, right? The sum of, instead of saying the 3 numbers, right? You could do stuff like this. Check this out. The sum of the, but here, stop the video right now and try to code this. Because what I'm going to do now, in fact, I'll just leave this here. I'm going to take this line, right? I'm going to make a copy of it. And again, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to comment it out. Whoops, I'm going to erase it there. But here, check that out. So now it's still there, but the program's going to ignore it. And I'm just going to paste it back in there because I'm going to tweak it, all right? So what I want to do now is I want to say the sum of, and then the actual values that Bruce enters, right? Me, the numbers I enter. I'm talking in the third person. So the sum of right? The sum of, right? The sum of, and then what are the variables? Number 1, comma, number 2, and number 3, right? And then we'll put is, and then comma, right? Check this out. So again, print can take multiple, what we call parameters, separated by commas. And that's just showing that it's going to do this, and then do this, do this, do this, do this, and this. So ready? Here we go. Run Python file in terminal. We'll go back to 1, 1, and 1. And it says here the sum of 1, 1, 1 is 3, right? That's correct. Now, believe me, don't freak out right now about the formatting. We could make this nicer now, but hold on, all right? Just hold on, all right? We'll get there. So let me run it one more time, and now I'll enter, I don't know, 10, 42, and 1,000, right? And there it is. The sum of 10, 42, and 1,000 is 1,052. Again, we can make the output display in a much nicer way, but we're just in like week 1 and 2 now. So just start with this program right here, right now. Make sure you can code it, and it's very simple, all right? It's a very simple operation. The one thing that I would say to you is we can easily change this, right, to the product, right, of the 3 numbers by changing the operator here. This is called an operator, this plus sign, this plus sign. If you change that to, and I'll make a copy of this just so you can see it here. Check it out. Ready? I'll make a copy of this line, right there, right? And I can do that. Asterisk is the multiplication sign. Asterisk is the multiplication sign. And then I would probably change this to the product, right? And then I can take this right here, make a copy of this line, right? Make a copy of this line. And instead of the sum, we can say the product, right, of, and the variable holding the product of the 3 numbers, right? The multiplication is called the product. Okay, and let me run it. Check it out. Ready? Let's do 10, I don't know, 2 and 4. Oh, I did it wrong. I did it wrong. So let me just run this again. I entered all 3 in one line. That was dumb. 10, 1,000, and 4. Okay, here we go. So the sum of 10, 1,000, 4 is that, and the product of 10 times 1,000 times 4 is 40,000. Again, I know some of you are like, what about commas? What about rounding? What about this and that? Hold off on that, all right? I want to make sure that you understand what we did here, all right? So go back and play the video, either slow it down, speed it up, and yeah, I'm going to carry on in the next video and just show you a few different ways to make this program an improved version of it, all right? Thanks for watching, and the code word for this video is headlight. Headlight is the code word. So if you want to Slack that to me directly, not in a general or questions, Slack that to me directly, I'll mark down some extra credit points. Have a great day.